Hello and welcome to my channel. I am an ex-Muslim from Southeast Asia and this is my story. In the last video, I talked about the things that I found within the Quran when I read the translations word per word. The conclusion from that findings is, the version of Islam that all Muslims know and follow today is not the same as the Islam being taught in Quran. From that point, I continue to study the Quran as I wanted to follow what Allah has said, exactly as how He said it. Not from some man who claimed to be a prophet, a scholar, or an imam, or anybody else. Just me and Allah's words. The more I studied the Quran, the more I find the differences from the Islam that everyone knew. Isn't it weird why God's words in Quran gave its reader different religion than what Islam is? At the time, I felt like the true Islam exists, only that it had been altered by those who used the Hadith to corrupt the religion, knowingly or unknowingly. Perhaps the people of other religions found Islam to be a threat, so they started a smear campaign. They started to fabricate Hadith about the Prophet Muhammad, telling ridiculous stories and narrations. Another thing that I realized when I read the Quran, it specifically said that believers who took care of orphan girls may marry 2, 3, or 4 of them. But how many did Muhammad marry? 11. He had 11 wives. It does not make sense for a prophet who delivers the Quran messages, but totally ignores the commandment inside. Even though I felt I had been given a revelation, an epiphany of some sort, from knowing the actual contents of Quran, I cannot deny there are verses in Quran that just does not compute at all. The verses that troubled me often are the verses describing the sky or heaven. The sky in Arabic is called as-sama. In Surah Al-Anbiya, verse 32, it read, "And we have made the sky a roof protected." And another Surah Luqman, verse 10, it read, "He created the sky without pillars that you can see." And another Surah At-Tur, verse 44, it read, "Were they to see a piece of the sky falling?" All these verses tell a lot about the author of Quran. That the author does not know that the sky isn't a structure or mass like Earth. Only recently we learned that the sky composed of a vast space with many planets and stars. But the Quran only talks about 2 things most of the time, earth and sky. Why? It is obvious. Because that is all the author could see. The earth and the sky. At the time, I just put aside all of the verses that does not make sense and focus on what makes sense to me. I started to change the way I practice Islam. For example, I started to pray 3 times a day. I changed my fasting practice. Muslims usually fast from Fajr prayer at dawn to Maghrib prayer at dusk. But Quran said specifically, and fast till night. So I break my fast when it is night time, when there is no longer any sunlight at the horizon. I started to ask around in forums and found out there are actually other Muslims who also followed Quran only. We exchanged thoughts on rituals and content of Quran. There isn't a single understanding. Each individual have their own interpretation. There are even Quran alone believer who says the word prayer means working. It does not bother me at all, as I believe the Quran speaks to its reader differently. As I see it now, I can say the appeal to Quran's messages is strong. Some surah is very powerfully worded. It really felt like a powerful creator who said it. For example, Surah Al-Rahman, the most compassionate, taught the Quran, created mankind, and taught them speech. The sun and moon with precision. The stars and trees bow down. The sky He raised it and set in balance, so that you do not be unjust in weighing. Weigh injustice and don't make deficient the balance. He laid out the earth for all beings. It is a great surah with good message, asking the reader to uphold justice. These verses aren't the problem. The problems are the other verses hiding in between these kind of beautiful verses, ready to pounce on you with messages like the punishment of those who wage war against Allah and His Prophet is none but they be killed or crucified or their hand and feet be cut off. It's like the tone has flipped 180 degrees in a blink. And with realization of these predatory verses, I stopped focusing on the good verses in Quran and turned my attention to the bad, violent, and error verses. With that turn of event, I have started my path towards disbelieving in Quran, and I will continue that in the next video. Meanwhile, please subscribe, like and share.